These are all chess variants that have been implemented in mchess. Literally each square is a variant. We can hover the variants to get some more information on them. You can see in the bottom left there. You can also just select a variant. Now it's a variant that is selected. And when we start a game, the game will play with that variant. So again, hovering the variant, you can see there's a tag called board. That's known as a trait. You can see the full collection of traits on the left here. When two variants share a trait, they also share a line on this graph. The line is also the color of the trait. So we can see this cluster to the right here, they're all blue. So these are all board variants, and every pair will have a board line between them. You can see this orange cluster. The orange trait is called effect. It's probably the loosely defined category. An effect variant refers to some kind of reaction or action. So atomic, for example, is a well-known one. And on capture, there's an explosion. So that's the effect. The effect is an explosion. Morphlings, we have the effect is when you move a knight, it turns into a bishop. And when you move bishop, it turns into a knight. All of these effect variants are connected together in the same way that the board variants are. And then we see this one bridging variant called thin ice. So this variant is both an effect and a board variant. And you can see by the description there that it is a variant that destroys tiles on the board. So it is connected to all of the board and all of the effect variants. Then we've got this cyan cluster. The cyan cluster is for variants that give you new moves. So a very simple example is complete knight. The knight now completes this diamond shape and is actually very, very strong in this form. A more classic example is something like push chess. So now pieces can additionally push other pieces. The red cluster is for restrictor-based variants. So they're kind of the opposite. They remove degrees of freedom. No fork means you're not allowed to make moves which would fork enemy pieces. So usually the knight would be able to move forward, but the knight can't move forward without capturing, can't even move forward capturing the pawn, because either move would mean it was forking other pieces. And max move is another cool restriction variant. Pieces can only move as far as they can. So the bishop can't stop earlier, it has to move all the way to the edge of the board, which is a bad move. You wouldn't make this move. So restrict variants remove degrees of freedom, and move variants add degrees of freedom. And we can see knightification here is bridging everything. It is the only move and restrict variant that we have. Knightification allows pieces to jump, but it also shortens how far they can move. So it's kind of giving you degrees of freedom on one dimension and taking them away on another. So we've got this little tetrahedron in the bottom here, and these are end trait variants. They're just win or loss conditions. So King of the Hill, a popular one, you get to the center, you win the game. 3 check is a popular loss condition. You get checked 3 times and you lose. Connect 4 is a lesser known win condition. Extinction is a lesser known loss condition. We've only got 4 of those. And then we've got double turn on its lonesome. It is the only variant currently that affects turn structure, but I'm sure many more of those will join the party at some stage. There are 2 more traits. Featured is something that I've filtered out. You can click on these trait buttons in the top left to show the connections or not. I've filtered out featured because I don't think it should really be a trait, and it might just be getting removed soon anyway, but it's like the variants that we like the most. And you can see it's distributed actually pretty well between the other traits, but it also brings everything close together and it kind of adds a bit of noise to the graph, so I've just taken it out. For those that have noticed, there is also simulate. Simulate is a rather odd trait. There's only 2 of them, no fork and chain reaction. So I've already shown off no fork. It is a simulation variant if it actually simulates entire moves to figure out things that it needs to figure out. No fork is actually like a little bit tricky, because it's not just that you can't fork pieces like I've already shown off, but black can't move this pawn 2 steps, because moving this pawn 2 steps would mean that the knight is forking. It's doing this via a simulation, it's actually making the move. And if there was some other rule that meant that the pawn exploded, then the square would be green, because it would notice that you're not actually going to leave the board in a state where the knight's attacking 2 pieces. So simulation variants are pretty subtle in that way. They're a bit more nuanced, a bit more complicated. They're also a bit hellish when you put them together. We do have a trait that singles them out, so we may see more simulation variants at some point. Traits aren't set in stone at all. They're just supposed to be helpful categorizations right now. but we would like to move in a direction where they are derived from the inherent logic of the variant. So in that way, you can kind of create a more generic variant and its traits are predefined. Sometimes that's more difficult. Like I mentioned, the more loose effect category might be difficult to capture exactly what effect means. But board is actually really well defined. We have in the game logic that when you're creating a new board, it does a whole bunch of things, like it will create the squares in a new way, and it'll have a new setup, and it will connect the squares in a certain way as well. The game will be able to know that this is a board variant. We don't even have to tell it explicitly. But at this time, all the variants are told explicitly what traits they are. So they might be a little bit wrong sometimes, but for the most part, they're pretty good. I've been showing off that you can actually create a game from here. This is a custom game setup screen, and the regular view is this grid view, where you can see all the variants a bit more clearly, and you still see the traits when you hover them. There's options here to see all the information at once if you want. This probably is the clearer view, but you do gain something from this network view. You get to see at a glance some of the variants that you haven't selected that are similar to the variants that you are selecting. So you might want to create a game where a lot of the variants have the same traits or have different traits. You have a bit more of an idea, the flavor of the game you're creating. Filters are also respected, so we have these filters at the top here. And if I want to filter out or filter to just the board variants, I've done that. If I filter out the board variants, then we get everything that isn't the board variants. And if I want to look something up, like all the variants with a P in them, you can also do that. I'm still tweaking things. This network view is not fully released, but if you have an account on MChess, which is totally free, you will see this option in the top right here where you can switch between the default view and the network view. Any feedback is appreciated. Thanks for watching.